Warm welcome to Mr. Julian Cary. Oh, good.
สวัสดีครับ เป็นไงบ้าง One, two, every day I got the blues. Every day I've got the blues. When you see me worry, baby, 'cause it's you I hate to lose. Nobody loves me, no. Nobody seems to care. Nobody loves me, no. Nobody seems to care. Speaking of bad luck and trouble, you know I've had my share. So baby, the blues. Every day I've got the blues. Well, you see me worried, baby, 'cause it's you I hate to lose. Nobody loves me. Nobody seems to care. Nobody loves me. Nobody seems to care. But speaking of bad luck and trouble, you know I've had my share. But speaking of bad luck and trouble, when you know I've had my share. Speaking of bad luck and trouble, when you know I've had my share. As more people are coming in, I wanted to say thank you so much for having me here. I'm really honored. You're all so sweet and so nice. So I'm really happy to be here with great people, and thankful to Mr. Hong and DePaul University for having me. This is great. I've got a really, really good band. Yes, give it up for your friends. That first song, of course, was Every Day I Have the Blues, and we're going to continue with a ballad written by Charles Mingus called Duke Ellington's Sound of Love. I was young and carefree, not a song had found my soul. Lost in blues, jazz, and ragtime. No sound had got to my mood. I was searching for that melody, love blues that lets me all alone. Sad clown with his circus closed down, lost on my merry-go-round. Came that melody in my heart, so yearning, taught me to hear music out of love from the soul. In this life we all infinite as the lover, and we love it as one Ellington sound of love. was young, not a song had found my soul, lost in blue, jazz and ragtime. No sound had got to my room. I was searching for that melody, the truth that gets me through. Sat down with his circus closed down, lost on my merry-go-round. Came that melody in my heart, so yearning, taught me to hear music out of love from the soul. In this life we all live as the lover and beloved, as one having sound of love. You must take a train to get to the river home. If you miss the A train, you'll find this waiting hard. Hurry, get on now, it's coming. For the send to those bells that howling. Oh. Get on the A train and you will be up in the hill. You'll find you is the quickest way to Harlem. Hurry up and hurry to get on now. It's time to hurry to get on. Why don't you listen to the humming, baby, you way alone. Get on the street. You will be happy. Oh. So this next song is a composition of mine. I wrote it for a project that I did. I released it a little over a month ago. It's there. I took 8 poems by the American poet E.E. Cummings, and I set them to original music. This is one of the first that I was really familiar with him. Well, that's not really true. This is one of the first that I really committed to for writing the music for this project. So this is a composition called Love is More Thicker Than Forget. Love is more thicker than forget, more thinner than recall, more seldom than a wave is wet, more frequent than to fail. It is most mad and moonly and blessed it shall be that all the sea which only is deeper than the sea. Less never than alive, less bigger than the least begin, less little than forgive. It is most sane So da bo da bo do da. So da ba ba da da ba ba da da ba ba. Ba you did it, ba you did it. Ba ba you ba 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 ba. Let's never lie. Let's bigger than the least began. Let's never than forget. It is most sane and sunny. Higher than the sky. We have one more before we start the conversation, and yeah, this is a song called "Think of You" by Terrace Martin. He's a great saxophone player, producer. I guess he plays drums now too. He's full of surprises, and yeah, and he's also a great keyboard player. Fantastic collaborator with a lot of great artists in America right now. So here's "Think of You." this time I can't forget you. I used to stay up late, listen to Mary J. Remember Curtis May. Got you in the mood, baby, yeah. Come over soon. Sometimes I do think of you. I do. What I dreamt wasn't real until I met you. What I felt the first time I ever met you. You know I can't forget you. I used to stay up late, listen to Mary Jane. Remember Curtis May as you went home. Baby, oh, come over soon. Sometimes I do. Oh, I think of you. I do. Think of
Yes, that was a lot of fun. Yes. Yeah. Well, we wanted to, well, I guess I should use this.
We wanted to open it up for any questions you have about anything. I know a couple things, a couple suggestions of maybe some things you might be wanting to know, kind of about the interaction that goes on between us, the way that we communicate with the music. Also things about composition, about harmony, about improvisation. The floor is yours.
You have a very good eye and how you develop your performance?
I've been doing it for a long time. I mean, I can only be alive for so long, but I've been performing professionally since I was 15. So I think a big part of it is trust. You really have to trust the musicians that you're with because it's easier to have a good time that way. Like, I've never played with any of these guys before today. We met and we rehearsed for a little bit and then we were just here. But I trust them and it's easier to have fun and look like you're having fun with people that you trust. When I played with the faculty last night, it was the same thing. It was really easy to let go and, and think about things other than the music, to think about like dancing every now and again, right? To think about trying to connect with the audience and good eye contact and all of that. So I think a big part of it is it's about the way that you present yourself, right? And some people like to sing like this. Some people are very just kind of closed off and nervous, but it's like, do you want to see somebody, if you go to a performance and someone's like this, you don't even want to see that person. You want to see someone who, stick their chest out, look at people, So.
Do you know about the riffs and runs in singing?
Yeah. So riffs and runs in singing, they're a great tool to have, but they should never be, I don't think they should ever be the main part of a performance. Riffs and runs are cool. They're fantastic. They're a really, really good tool when you use them correctly. But it's kind of like, I think of it a lot like cooking. I really, really like to cook. I really love garlic. But if you use too much garlic, it's really bad. Like, you cannot use too much garlic. So you have to balance it out with other flavors. And riffs and runs are a lot like that. In terms of how to do them, repetition, listening to people that you like, trying to sing things without syllables. If any of you want like a really quick course on a good way to start singing runs, take songs you know, and then remove the words, and then only do it as a run, like the bass part from Bach's Double Violin Concerto. You get a little bit more control of what you've got going on. And then of course, knowing the sound of the blues is really important, because a lot of those are rooted in the blues. So listening to people like Donny Hathaway, Layla Hathaway, Shaka Khan, Erykah Badu, Moonchild, they're hot right now. So yeah, so listening to a lot of it, but knowing that you have to use it sparingly. You have to use it as a choice. In the back.
If you're not okay to be on the stage, what do you do?
Yeah, it's funny. The first time I've been nervous in kind of a long time was walking up to this building today. It was great. I had a good morning. It was smooth. I ate a lot of food, and then I was walking, and I was like, oh, why do I feel like this? It's like, oh, I'm nervous. That's what it is. But so performance anxiety is like, it can help you or it can hurt you. And the way that it hurts you is obvious. It's when you get out there and you don't believe in yourself at all. You can't let go and trust the musicians. You can't have fun because you're so in your own thoughts that you can't focus on the performance of it because you're so nervous about messing up or if people are going to hate it. By the way, the answer to that is, well, I'll get to that later. The way that it helps you is, the nerves, the chemicals in your brain, right? Adrenaline. It's there when you're nervous, and it's there when you're really, really ready for a performance. Like when you're so excited that you can't be backstage anymore. So sometimes you have to take that nervous feeling and change it into something else because it's the same chemicals. So one thing that I do when I'm nervous, let's see, I did most nervous I've ever been, I think. I did a performance with Hans Zimmer one time, and when I was growing up, The Lion King was my favorite movie ever. My first word might have been Mufasa. But I was so nervous because it's like Hans Zimmer's right there, Lebo, the guy who originally did the he's right there. The same guy was right there from over 20 years ago when the movie came out. And there's all these great, my favorite Armenian Duduk player was there. So I was just really, really nervous. And one thing that I told myself that may or may not work for other people is pretend that your legs don't belong to you and they have a mind of their own. So when you get backstage, your legs just go. If you're nervous anywhere from your legs up, it's time to just change it into something else. It's time to change it to something positive, because by the time you're already on stage, there's no going back, you know? And then what was I gonna say? What did I say I was gonna come back to? I think I lost it.
Performance anxiety.
Right, so performance anxiety. So a lot of the things that we're anxious about don't really, they're not real, you know? Like sure, okay, so let's say you're nervous about if you're gonna mess up. The easy trick to that is just practice more. If you've practiced enough, you have nothing to be nervous about when it comes to messing up. Because if you've practiced enough, you know that the mistakes that you're gonna make are just, it happens. We're human, you can't get away from mistakes. In fact, I prefer performances with mistakes. They're a good reminder that everyone's just normal, just kind of trying to live this life like anyone else. If you're worried about if people are gonna like it or not, just know, everyone's opinion of you it's none of your business. It's none of your business. Just go out there and do your thing. Some people are gonna like it, some people aren't gonna like it. But even if people don't like it, they want you to do well. That's the weird thing to think about, is if there's a performer that I really don't like, that I'm watching, I still want them to do well. Like, I don't want them to fall off of the stage or forget the lyrics. Like, that's terrible. You don't even think about it, you know? So, be prepared. Know that the audience wants you to do well. And again, the whole trust thing. If you're going up completely by yourself, then yeah, depending on the audience, well, you have to trust yourself as well. So if I'm nervous for a performance, but I'm going up with people that I really care about and people that I really trust, then I don't even have to think about myself. It's like listening to that CD now. Whenever someone sends me something where it's like, oh, it was on the radio, or my mom's listening to it, or you know, my grandmother, she fell asleep to this, or whatever. I can't listen to myself anymore. I've heard it enough, but it doesn't have to be about me. I can think about the other people that played on the project, right? So if you shift your focus to the other people that are involved in making the music, then it's easier to trust and it's easier to not think about yourself. Does that answer your question? Anything? Is there anything you'd like me to talk about?
Totally up to you.
I want to talk about interaction.
I think we have another question.
Oh, we do? Oh, sorry.
Actually, I think that you feel like you like the singer's voice more than yourself, more than your own voice.
Yes. Think about my own voice. Well, it's weird. I've never exactly learned to love my own voice, like enjoy listening to it, because it just feels weird after a while. But the other thing about practicing and getting good at what you do is even if you hear your own voice a lot, you can start to appreciate when you do things well, which has more to do with yourself than it does other people. Like I'm a little bit nerve-wracked because there's one really good voice here in the audience that, you know, that I really look up to. I really look up to you. I love your voice. But, you know, that can't really get in the way of my performance. If someone's voice is better than yours, maybe see what about their sound that you like that you can bring into your sound. Like, I'll never be the singer that Donny Hathaway was, right? But when I listen to him a lot, I realize that there are elements of it that I can take. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be the next anyone. You should be the first yourself. And that comes from listening to a lot of the people that you like, a lot of the people that are better than you. I mean, the thing is, it's not really about, you know, who's better or not. It's just a really, really long journey that everyone's on at the same time. And everybody fails. There's no achievement with music. Like, nobody wins music. So in that way, it's not really worth it to think of music itself as a competition, you know. There's no, even the Grammys or whatever. Those people didn't win music. Some of them shouldn't have won their Grammys, but yeah, just realize that you're on the same path as a lot of people in trying to get better at singing or at playing or whatever you do in music, or really just in life. But some people started before you, some people are gonna start after you, some people had different influences that sort of helped them develop faster. But yeah, overall I would say be inspired rather than intimidated, because it gives you something to work with as well.
To just directly say, like some of students here, they know that you can play some instrumental, but most of the students here, they can play the piano just for themselves. Do you have a trick or technique to practice about singing without playing instrumental?
I would say it takes a lot of time, and maybe start with playing. Start with playing while singing. Because first of all, later on, if you get really good at playing for yourself, you don't have to hire a piano player if you want to show up and do something alone. So, I mean, there's that, just, you know, if you want to save money, but that's not what it's all about. Having a visual reference like the piano, like we can't touch any of this in a way that the movements are so small. Your larynx is this big. It's this big. Well, okay, it's a little smaller than that. It sits right there, and you can't touch it. And even if you could, you wouldn't know what to do with it because all the movements are so small. They're just messages from your brain that eventually you learn how to train. So it really helps when you have something as easy as I'm going to walk over and play a key. I think it's honestly better if you don't have that available to you. I would say get really good at learning how to listen to yourself. So for example, take the A train that I did with Pla. That took a lot of, knowing what I want to sing before I sing it. So there's some of the prediction that comes with that, but there's also, you have to have kind of a foundation of other sounds or of the harmony in your head. So if you want to practice without piano, so what's something that I do? So for example, when I transcribe people's solos, which we'll also talk about, when I learn people's improvised solos, after a while, I know them well enough that I can do them without the accompaniment. But that comes with a lot of time of trusting your ears. So you have to listen before you sing, and you have to listen while you sing, really, really well. Because there are some people like the American national anthem is what a song. It's not very well written at all. It's kind of hard to sing for people that aren't singers. So not everyone can hear, "Oh, say, can you see by the dawn?" See, that's where people really trip up, because they can't get, "See by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed in the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars." Like, some people don't understand that it's do, 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 because they haven't really spent enough time listening and understanding what that is. And it's easier to see that visually on piano, at least. Or if it works really well for you on bass or guitar or something, yeah. But I would say the goal shouldn't be to move away from the piano. I think you should always keep it as a part of your practice because it's really, really helpful. Plus, you get to learn a lot more about the harmony. Like, here's one thing I was saying, and this might be a good answer to some questions about, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Oh no! So, oh no, I'll just leave it there, it's fine. How are we doing here? Got the circus going on. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
So, one good way to, like a good reason for keeping the piano in your life, as well as singing, is so that you can hear harmony. So that you can hear harmony better.
So that you can hear harmony better. So in your head, it's hard to think of an entire chord. So I don't remember who I was working with a couple days ago, but we were talking about hearing the harmony better. So if you, for example, on the song that I wrote, you can hear all the notes in the chord at the same time. So you can explore them. You can kind of float around in this cloud of harmony right here. And keep it going so that your ears can do something like so you can hear the connections between them. Same scale. So you can hear some of those connections better because you can slow it down for yourself. The nice thing about like backing tracks and like Jamie Aebersold tracks and everything is that you get to do it all in time. But sometimes if you keep practicing things in time, you don't get an opportunity to slow it down and know the song deeply or know the harmony deeply. So when you're messing with really weird chords like you can't do that all in time. So it's good to slow it down and be able to hear that. And it's something that you can't really do on your own. So eventually, when you do that enough, you can take it away. So I'll choose a simpler example like Autumn Leaves. That's the first few bars. So if you spend enough time with complex at all. If you have to, even if you just play the roots. Anyone could learn to do that after a time. The chords can be simple. But when you do that, eventually you can step away. So if I go so eventually you can do it without, or with, yeah. So that's a very long answer to a very good question. So there you go. Yeah, any other questions?
อะไรนะ
ถามมาที่เดียวเลยถามที่
อ๋อ
เดียวเลย
ก็จะมีสอนที่แบบสอนร้องสเกลพวกเนี้ยอะไรอย่างเงี้ยคือแล้วเวลาที่เราไปเล่นอะมันแบบคือฝึกมาได้แต่เวลาไปเล่นแล้วมันใช้มันออกมาใช้ได้ยากมากอยากรู้แบบว่ามันควรจะเอามายังไงเนี่ยหนูเรียนรู้ไม่ถูกเนี่ย
Sorry, it's taking a very long time to try.
เชิญเลยครับอาจารย์ฟาร์มช่วยแปลหน่อยเลย
ขออีกทีครับพี่
ตอนสอบไฟนอลมิดเทอมใช้สเกลนี้จะอยากรู้ว่าแอพพลายในการใช้ในการเล่นยังไง
เพราะบางครั้งไปเล่นแล้วมันไม่สามารถร้องออกมาได้เลยอะมันใช้จริงแต่ว่ามันจะร้องออกมาแค่แบบบางนิดหน่อย practice หน่อย
Practicing on scales or more pictures and stuff. She's finding it very difficult to try to that you cannot do all scales.
Sure. So one really simple way to get over that is, again, by learning people's solos. Learn from people. So get in the habit of practicing people who use that kind of thing a lot. So there are some, and I see where it could be kind of challenging because you're like, so what songs, who plays that in a song? Who plays like that all the time? So let's say you want to talk about modes. Let's say you want to talk about the pentatonic scale or something like that. A good example is anyone playing impressions, or so what? It's one chord, and then it's another chord. So with that, you get to hear how the legends navigated that harmony, and you get to see, so eventually when you learn them, this question has a lot of parts that I could go into. So when you learn the scales and when you learn the modes and all that, try to find a song that is modal, or find a really good improviser. If you write out your solos, then that's a really, really good way to look and say, oh, this person's using this scale right here, and I can use that scale in the same way. So, like, diminished, for example. My first ever encounter with diminished that I can think of was John Coltrane's solo on Blue Train. Bo, bo, dip, bo, do, dip, bo, do, dip, da, 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 da. So that right there, if you learn what that is in advance through your practice and you know really what it sounds like, the best way to apply it is to learn how to listen for it, to identify it when you hear it. And then the way to turn it into, to make it a part of your own improvisation is to learn that solo. Learn what they did, exactly how they did it, and then pick your favorite parts. So if you find that there's a part, if you've been working on Locrian Sharp Tube or something like that, if you've been working on, or even something simple like Dorian, if you've been working a lot on Dorian, and you see a really good example of how Joe Henderson, or Miles Davis, or Mary Lou Williams used Dorian, then take that and turn it into an exercise until it's so simple that it can't help but just kind of come out automatically. So, and it takes a lot of time, which seems obvious, but it's like, it's hard to, it takes months before it really becomes a part of what you do, before you stop thinking, okay, the thing that I practice, I'm gonna do it now. It takes a while before it comes automatically, but that's just kind of the case for like practicing it a lot. So if you turn, I guess the short answer is, if you turn some of those examples in real people's solos into exercises until you know them really, really well, and you can hear them when they happen in other solos, then after a while, it'll become a part of what you do. And play with your friends a lot. Everyone play with your friends a lot. If you get really, really bummed out or sad that a performance didn't go well, and you can't stop thinking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks, you're not playing enough. Which is it's a hard pill to swallow, So it doesn't even have to be professionally. Although there are a lot of really great places, but the jam at Jazz Happens, yeah, go to that. That's a good place to mess up. And it's not even about messing up. It's just a good place to kind of, stretch your legs, try some things out. So, yeah, find as many opportunities to play as possible. So that way, as that stuff is working its way in and becoming automatic, there's more of a reference outside of the practice room. It might just happen at a jam. Unfortunately, all of my best performances were ones that I was not getting paid for. It's just, I went up to someone's thing and they said, yeah, come up and sing. And right there, it's like, oh my God, all the stuff I've been practicing, it's clicking right now. Great, use it another time when you want to use it. Good question.
แปลให้หนูหน่อยได้ไหม คือเวลาตอนที่เขาเปอร์ฟอร์มอะค่ะเขาจะมีการที่แบบว่า body language เป็นหนูอยากรู้ว่าในหัวของเขาตอนนั้นอะเขากำลังเล่นเครื่องดนตรีอะไรอยู่
Okay. So she's asking that when you perform, and she saw that you were tapping yourself, and she wants to know what instrument you were thinking of in your class.
I really like saxophone solos a lot. I really love saxophone solos. They're my favorites to learn. They're very, they're very, they can be very vocal in a way, like the different ways that they articulate. I was just talking with the group about this morning, is saxophone solos, you get a good variety of things that you can do vocally. So, I would say those are my favorite. It's not so much that I know how to really play saxophone, and it's like, these are the correct fingerings from what I'm playing. But another thing I was telling the class this morning is, since we can't touch any of this, and since sometimes it's a lot to try to think about visually, you have to put it somewhere, So, for example, like, when all that hemiola stuff is happening, like if I'm trying to do that in a solo, my head would explode if I tried to do that without putting it somewhere. So even if I just have to reach across myself and say, like we played Monin in 5 last night, which was just a treat. Every morning, 5 in the morning. We did that. And Ajahn Sunny said, can we do it in 5? So I always, and so it took me a little while because of course I've never done it in 5. That's not a normal thing that you just do on every gig. So it took me kind of slowing it down in my head and putting it somewhere. So if you're dealing with hard rhythms, it's worth it to put it somewhere. So I'm sure you've got to do this too. Because of all the trouble I see, I salute again. See, I lost it. Right there, I lost it. But it's good to keep it somewhere, because it's really hard to do it if you don't have a physical reference. It's nice to just tap it out sometimes. Yeah. How are we doing with time?
Maybe a couple more questions.
Sure.
15 minutes.
Cool.
ถามเลยเนาะ
ตอนแกะฮาร์ดดิสเครื่องเปล่าอะค่ะบางเพลงมันเป็นเพลงที่เร็วมากๆอะค่ะหนูไม่รู้ว่าจะต้องใช้คำสแกตในแบบไหนที่ทำให้สมูทอย่างบางทีเรื่องโน้ตของโน้ตของสแกตนั้นๆค่ะจะเป็นนั้นนะคะมันยากอยู่แล้ว ก็เลยอยากจะขอคำแนะนำว่าถ้าเกิดต้องใช้คำควรจะเป็นแบบไหนใช้คำดูปะดูหรือว่าอะไรแบบนี้
Yes, of course. See, I knew it by the end. I told you I'm getting better at understanding this. So, yeah, I just talked about this morning. It's a really good, so
let's say you're trying to do an exercise, right? You're trying to bring your knees to your chest. If you're trying to do it, but you're trying to do it fast, you can't bring your knees all the way up every time. If you're trying to touch the floor as fast as possible, they have to be really, really, really fast motions. So you can't show up to sing something fast like ba do ba. Like you can't totally commit to it. It's got to be like ba ba da ba da ba da ba da ba da. Well, not ba da ba da ba da ba da ba ba da ba da ba da. So try saying ba do ba do ba do ba do ba. Now try saying da ba da ba da ba da ba da. Da ba da ba da ba da ba da. Da ba da ba da ba da. Right. So a good thing to, a good way to practice that and put it in solos, because that's a really good way to do it, because it's nice and smooth, and it doesn't take a lot of physical effort to put your lips together if it's so small. Like, so trumpet solos are really nice for that. One that I've been showing people here is Lee Morgan's solo on Locomotion. Was one of the most fun projects I ever did. Because it starts off, right, Curtis Florida. Is the key to living a long and happy life. You can do it all day. You can do it all day. So for fast syllables, a good combination of like ba, va, da, va is really easy to say fast. And it works because it's in a group of 4. So if you're, if someone's running 8th notes or 16th notes, instead of it being something that's paired like da, va, 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 well, I guess you can do that. But it's easier to go ba, va, da, 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 va, da. So you can start it somewhere. Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'll see all of you because I'm here for the next week, but does anyone have any questions for here that everyone else might have about like scat singing? Because it can be kind of a mystery, and a lot of people have the same questions, and there's no question too simple because it's hard if you don't have a lot of experience doing it. So, yeah. Anything on scat singing at all. No? No, sorry, I wasn't. Were you going to say something? No, you. Were you going to say something? Well, all right. Try to figure it out. If no one has questions, there's still a couple things that I can address that I think are important. So, one really big thing that I think it's important to realize, especially right now, is there's really no reason to wait to have a career in music if you want that out of your life. If that's what you want, just start it now. Even if you're a student at the same time. You know how hard it was to release an album during my senior year? Extremely hard, but I did it because that's what I wanted. And being in a music school, if you were studying like quantum mechanics, right? If you were studying engineering or something like that, and you wanted to put out an album, you might not have a lot of support from your faculty members, from the people that are teaching you. But my teacher, Cary Marsh, we all know Cary Marsh, when I told him I wanted to do this, and I'd show up to my lessons and I'd say like, hey, So I kind of want to go a different direction with things. I'd like to work more on composition and arranging and singing, harmony that isn't regular and kind of trying to figure these things out. It became such a nice project for us to just sit down together and talk about those things. So if that's something you want, there's no reason to wait until you're done. Start now. Get ahead of the game. That's why I'm here today. I have a recital a month after I get back. Yeah, I need to start learning that stuff. Well, no, I need to finish learning that stuff. I've started, believe me. So there's no reason not to do it. If there's any part of you that likes to write music, please keep doing it. Because it's very, very, very hard to find your own voice after a while. And you only get that from writing a lot. You don't have to like everything you write. Yeah, you don't even have to perform everything you write. It's just good to have it so that you can get those ideas on paper. And that's another good reason to play with your friends, so you can have your friends play it. That first track, Love is More Thicker Than Forget, when I wrote that, I brought it to my friend, Daniel Thompson, and we sat down together and, let's see, I'm really good at starting things and he's really good at finishing things. So all I had was do 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 do. And he took that, and together, we just crafted the rest of the song. And right after that, from that one song, I knew I had kind of a framework. I knew exactly how I wanted to write the rest of the music for the project. And I'm definitely not, I wouldn't call myself a composer before a year ago, but lo and behold, things happen. So yeah, get out there, get after it. Book some gigs, play with your friends. I think another thing that's really important to realize right now is it's really easy to get in your own head about all of this. I've known some really, really great people, some of them that go to UNC, who are awesome. They're truly, truly great musicians. They have a lot of potential, but they won't step away and take a breath. There are some people where as soon as they pick up their horn, they start playing like they're not gonna live tomorrow, right? It's like, just breathe, calm down, it's gonna be all right. Although, I think that's a message that more applies in the United States. People here seem pretty chill. But if you're starting to get really stressed out about this stuff, remember, music is fun, but if you keep beating your head against the wall, trying to make something happen, you're gonna start to hate it after a while. And if your relationship with music is anything like mine, you want it to be real good. You never, ever want to have a bad relationship with music. So that means take a break when practicing. If you practice all day, make sure you take breaks. The other thing is, don't spend your whole life in the practice room. Music comes from when you have life experiences, when you can write songs about things and people and places. But you have to go do things, see people, and go places if you want to write songs about it. Yeah, I've heard some composers that spend too much time by themselves. Yeah. And it applies during performance too. So if you think of every moment of your musical performance as a composition, as writing poetry or something like that, it gets really, music starts to feel really different in a way with, it's always kind of mysterious. You never know what's gonna happen. You have a lot more power. The other thing is make sure you own everything you do. Don't let sheet music own you. You can do anything different. One thing I've heard a lot is, whenever I sing this tune, it comes out the same every time. It's easy for that to happen. It's easy to go into autopilot and do the same thing every single time. But change something on purpose. This is a free world. You can just not sing the tune if you want to. You could go up and call it and just not do anything. You shouldn't do that, but you can if you want to. There's nothing stopping you. So make sure you're taking risks in music. It's extremely important because, who is it? Right, it's Dr. Alexander, the director of the School of Music at UNC where I come from. He famously said, "There's no such thing as a fine arts emergency." There are no emergencies in music at all. Take it easy,
Try things out, because the worst thing that happens, especially during a performance, recording is a little bit different. If something goes wrong, it's over immediately. People probably won't forget it immediately, but it's over. So don't even hang on to it. That's also why you perform a lot. If you make 75 mistakes in 1 week, it's a lot better than making one really big one every single week. So get used to making mistakes. Get used to knowing yourself so that you can fix things, so that you can recover if something goes really wrong. And thankfully, nothing really went wrong here. That was a really smooth performance. I'm happy with it. But you have to be ready to know what to do if you get lost. Yeah. And that comes with taking risks. So if you do the same thing every time, you're always going to be safe. And it's funny, there's no emergencies in music, but also music it's not supposed to be a completely safe place either. It's a place where you get to try a lot of things. I've messed up a lot of performances. Let me say that again. I've messed up a lot of performances in ways that are not cool, just because I tried something. I had a performance that I thought went okay, and a bunch of my teachers came up and they said, "That was brave. That was adventurous. You really went for it." And I thought, I think they're just telling me that I was bad just now. But it's okay to be bad. There's really no being bad. It's just always getting better. It's not going to be perfect every time. It shouldn't be perfect every time. So the other thing that I think is, speaking of perfection, everyone I've heard has really great vocal technique, and that's great. Keep it, because it allows you to do a lot of stuff. And this is the same with really any instrument. I'm talking to everybody now. If your technique is great, that's good. But also know that having some of the flaws, some of the imperfections, that's almost even better than having good technique. It allows you to navigate and get more adventurous. But overall, you shouldn't be you shouldn't be concerned with perfect performances or with sounding perfect. So if I say, there are some ways to sound ugly pretty, like look at me, I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree. Get dirty. Don't hurt yourself, please. Get dirty. All of our favorite singers, at least all of my favorite singers, they had some of these imperfections, and it made them fantastic. So embrace who you are as a person. Love yourself enough to know that you can own all of your perfections, and there's no use in trying to iron them all out until there's no wrinkles. Yes, we are all old shirts full of wrinkles, and keep the wrinkles because they're important.
Oh, but no, I have a question.
Yes.
Maybe not important. So there's a saying by many people, jazz singer equals to scatting, scat solo, scat singing equals to jazz singer. So I think many people really would like to learn scatting. It's very mysterious, very challenging. Most of the time if you spend so much time in it. So my question is, so for you, like scat solos, what is the importance, the function, the role, or the mission in jazz genre generally, and for you personally?
So that's a good question. So jazz is, when you answer that question and when you ask yourself that question, it's important to know where and why jazz happened. So jazz happened because, yes, this is the third time I've done that in this trip. Jazz happened because a really long time ago, my people were taken from their home and they were tortured and made to work in the United States. Before they were even the United States, really. It had just been happening for so long. And the way that they recovered from that was with music. We've always been able to persist with music. Even when really terrible things still happen to my people in the United States and across the world, music is a very central part of coming together. So when you think about how important it was for the people who invented this, or rather for the people who invented this, there are certain elements that you have to keep in mind. So one of those elements that's really important in ancient African music, as well as, jazz in the last 100 years. Jazz isn't even 100 yet. That's crazy. We've come so far in such a short time. But one of those is the element of improvisation. Yeah. In drum circles, there's so much improvisation that's happening. Because there was no written music. It's like, can you really get together and play drums for 40 minutes to 2 hours from a score? No, it's all coming from up here. So improvisation is a really important part of it, and that's why I think taking scat solos is important, because it's what black music is about. It's what jazz music is about. It's not the only thing, but it's a really, really big part of it. So I think if you're going to stay true to the spirit and call it jazz music, that's one element that you have to have. Another one is call and response. So that's some of that, that's what was nice about playing with Vlad just now, because he listens really, really well. So if I go da 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 da, he's going to go pa 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 pa, and it's great. That's another reason. When you pick your musicians, don't just pick people that you like. Pick people that are going to support you if you're putting a band together. Because music is a lot more fun when the things that you didn't plan for happened. I didn't even tell them that we were doing that song until I started to feel bad for telling them that we were doing something and I wasn't going to tell them what it was. So I said, we're just going to do Take the A Train. Just you and me. So having room for some of that improvisation, as well as the listening and the calling and the responding, is really, really important. The other thing is the idea of a soloist. This was not invented in African music, but it's a very important part of it. So every now and again, you might hear somebody's drum a lot louder than someone else's. Or even for the, like for old slave work songs, there's one that goes, I'll be so glad when the sun goes down. I'll be so glad when the sun goes down. But the part that you don't hear is the caller goes, I'll be so glad when, and everyone else goes, oh, when the sun goes down, when the sun goes down, I'll be so glad when, oh, when. So calling and responding, the idea of a soloist, it's so present in all of this music. And when you listen for those elements, as well as the sound of the blues, that's another thing. One way to stay true to jazz is realizing that when these people were performing this music, if you've been working for the entire time that the sun has been up, you're not thinking about, my technique has to be good. African music was never about, my technique has to be good or else I can't perform this music. Some people don't sound good and are perfect at what they're doing. Their voices aren't pretty, per se, but you feel it. So it's so much more about the feeling than in, how much you practice to make sure your arpeggios are good. It's good to practice those things because it's 2019. We're modern musicians. We need to have every base covered so that we can keep making new stuff. But there are some things that I think have to stay the same if we're gonna call what we're doing jazz. So keeping the blues in it, keeping improvisation, keeping call and response, keeping the idea of a soloist. And that's why I do what I do when it comes to jazz solos. In terms of how to practice them, by the way, I have all of this, well, some of it. I have a lot of good steps for if you want to start with improvisation or learning how to interact or making your performances more personal or memorable. I have them written out. So if you need it, send me an email and I will send it to you. I think that's about all the time.
You want to talk about the CD?
Oh, yes. So this is my CD. It's called Heaven Indeed. Look at this guy. He looks better than I do. So like I said, I took 8 poems by my favorite poet and I wrote music so that the poetry could become the lyrics. I recorded this at UNC in our recording studio. It's fantastic.
I recorded with some of my best friends ever, Ajahn Kai at Maidon. He played drums on this, and he's so good at drums, it doesn't make any sense. Yes, I'm very mad at Thailand for taking all the good drummers out of the world and keeping them here. Yeah, so it was fantastic to put together this. I have them here. I brought less clothing here so that I could bring these CDs for you, so please take them. Please take them. They're 300 baht each. If you listen to it, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have questions, because it can be kind of dense, kind of complicated, but I have a lot of fun discussing the process for composing because it's so new to me. So yeah, and if we run out, it's also available online. So if we run out, let me know and I'll show you how to get to it. And the other thing, not related to the CD, is in the time that I'm here, if you would like to do private lessons, let's do it. I'll look at my schedule and make sure I don't have anything happening, which is not a lot in the afternoons, not so much until the evening. So if you want to do a lesson, let's talk. Also, let's hang out. You guys are my friends. So let's hang out while I'm here. Let's have a really, really good time. Enjoy this if you listen to it. If you want to do a lesson, let me know. Pay what you can. If you can't pay, I'll still do a lesson with you. So I'm here to serve you until I'm gone. So please let me know whatever you need.